A car crash followed by a 3-month coma turns his once gentle mother into a raging lunatic.
How the same person could be a saint one minute and a nightmare the next was a constant source of frustration for our family.
Hear what Sean Thornton later discovered about his mom's mysterious condition and how it changed his life forever on today's 700 Club Interactive. Good morning and welcome to the program. You've heard of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Well, now imagine growing up with a parent like that. Today, you're going to meet a pastor whose mom had a split personality. That's coming up a little later in the program. But first, we wanted you to know about this story in case you missed it. If you use in-home security cameras, we wanted to share a warning with you. Jennifer, a Houston mother, was horrified to find out that someone had hacked into a webcam positioned in her daughter's bedroom. The camera was meant to keep her children safe, but instead, everything her daughters were doing in their room was being live streamed on an app.
People are watching my kids in their home, dressing, sleeping, playing. It's your parent's worst nightmare. We have security cameras to protect them, and I feel like I've failed because I'm not protecting them. They're in my house.
Well, thankfully, the images were found by another mother 2,000 miles away in Oregon. Shelby Ivy downloaded the app thinking she could watch live stream images of the Earth. But some of the live stream was watching people in their homes. And when she saw the little girl's bedroom, she posted a webcam warning on a Facebook page for mothers living in Houston. One of Jennifer's friends saw the post and actually recognized the girl's bedroom. And by the time Jennifer turned the webcam off, 571 people had already liked her daughter's page, which means that's how many people were watching her daughters. Jennifer thinks the hackers accessed the webcam through a video game her kids were playing. One expert warns we're all at risk.
If the system is connected to the internet, then it's vulnerable to attack. And most of these systems have not been designed to be secure. So they offer multiple opportunities for somebody that knows what they're doing to break into them.
Well, we're certainly not trying to scare you here, but we just want you to be aware of what's going on. And if you don't want this to happen to you, remember anything that hooks into a network must be locked down. So don't use an easy password or the default password that comes with the device. Always set a long and strong password on all devices. And certainly when you see a story like this, don't just possibly be concerned and say, well, that will never happen to our family. We need to be aware of what's happening with all the technology nowadays and just be vigilant in protecting ourselves. Well, on a happier note, remember the movie Karate Kid? Of course, who could forget Mr. Miyagi and wax on, wax off and the lesson he gave? We came across a real-life Mr. Miyagi, Sharath Jason Williams. Now, when his martial arts students started to cry during class, Williams stopped to give the boy a word of encouragement. His "It's Okay to Cry" speech went viral and has now been seen by over 24 million people. Take a look.
Zeus! 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 Why are you crying? That's what this is about, son. It's okay to cry. We cry as men. Why are you crying, though, son?
Because it is hard to do with my left hand.
Okay, good. But you did it, though. You know in life there's going to be things harder for you to do than other things?
Yes, sir.
And you know those things that may appear to be hard to do, you're going to have to do as a man, regardless. And it's going to take tears. It's going to take the blood of Yeshua, Jesus, and your sweat to break through it. As soon as we hit resistance, we want to stop, right? Because it's hurting. We feel that pain. We're like, I'm not going through this no more, right?
Yes, sir.
We have to go all the way as men. It's going to be very painful. Do you understand?
Yes, sir.
Being a black man in this country, you're going to need mental fortitude. You're going to have to be strong here more so than here. You understand?
Yes, sir.
You can do it. You just got to put your mind to it. And it's good to cry so you can work through that emotion. So when it arises again, you can push it to the side and do what you have to do. You understand?
Yes, sir.
All right, good. Let's see what you got.
Well, God bless Mr. Williams. We can all learn something from that, can't we? Especially parents. You know, sometimes we can see something happening with our children and we get a little caught up in the heat of the moment and we just kind of react. And as we saw there, that wonderful mentor to young children took the time to collect himself and think, what can I say now that will help this precious young man in the future, and we can all be blessed by what we just saw. Well, are you enjoying the Olympics? One of the South African runners certainly is. Track star Wade van de Kerk is giving all the glory to God after winning gold and setting a new world record at the Olympic Games. The South African Olympian won first place in the 400-meter race, beating American Michael Johnson's 17-year-old world record by nearly half a second. After winning, he tweeted a picture of himself kneeling on the track, and his post said, "Jesus did it, and God is power." His victory is especially sweet for his mother, who was also a runner. 24 years ago, she was not allowed to compete as a black woman in South Africa. Seems sometimes when the Olympics come around, a lot of people say they aren't really looking forward to it, but then when they start to see the human drama that unfolds and the personal stories that come out, it's a much different scenario. Well, more than 2 million people are locked up in the criminal justice system. And even though there's a big push for reform, the question remains, can inmates change and live crime-free once they're released? John Jessup found a Florida rehabilitation program with a near-perfect record, and it's based entirely on the idea of Christian discipleship.
God our Lord, Jesus Christ, the Father of glory, gives unto me the spirit of wisdom and revelation.
This is not your usual Bible study or weekly small group. Each day, these women pray together, read the Bible, and hold each other accountable, things they say they desperately need as convicted felons.
We're not bad people, we've made bad choices.
All they tell you is that you're never gonna make it. You're a convicted felon, you can't do it. It's gonna be terrible to get a job.
Although women pose a lower public safety risk and their path to the criminal justice system often differs than men, the challenges they face upon release are often the same, like trying to find the support system they need to get back on their feet and fight for a second chance. Inside that door, Dawn Knighton is providing that support network by giving women a place to call home alongside others they come to know as family.
This is our little kitchen.
Cozy, you said?
Yes, it is cozy.
Christian counselor Dawn Knighton shares this small 3-bedroom home with all these women.
These are the ladies' rooms. We have 4 ladies to a bedroom.
Her goal, helping female inmates released from prison have a place to live, find work.
How was your day, Melanie?
It was great.
And become productive in society. Tough lessons for women with rap sheets that include grand theft, drugs, and even murder. For Dawn, this work is personal.
I deserve to be on death row. I deserve to be doing life in prison. And only by the grace of God, did he have another plan for my life.
Dawn's life of crime began with drugs. She would eventually sell her body to feed a crack cocaine addiction.
Before I knew it, I was homeless and, living a life, just doing things I never dreamed I would do, having just absolutely no morals and doing everything I could just to survive.
You used to sleep here every night?
Yes.
She showed us where she slept, on the beach under these stairs. By day, she worked this street corner, harassed by habits she couldn't kick, and Christian neighbors who knew what she was up to.
And I got my bullhorn out, and I would get on the bullhorn and say, "This is a no prostitution zone. The police will be called."
And I'm standing out there with a Glock in my, in my pants, and I'm like, if you don't go back in your house, I'm out here, I'm high, I'm trying to work, and we'd go back and forth.
That was really my first encounter with Dawn, but I didn't know Dawn personally. But I know I was praying for Dawn and a number of others like her.
A total of close to 50 felony convictions finally caught up with her. It was during her last prison sentence, confined in a cell with only a Bible, that she says she experienced a radical change.
And I cried out to God and I said, God, if what you say in your word is real and you will set me free from all this bondage, if you'll set me free, I'll spend the rest of my life telling people what you've done in my life. And he did.
She completed her first year of Bible college while behind bars. After getting out, she finished and even earned a PhD in biblical studies. She sees her release and this new life as a miracle and a reminder of her promise to show inmates there's hope.
I had never seen anyone who had come out of my lifestyle who had made it. And I told the Lord, I said, I want to be the one. I want to be the one to do it.
And the Florida Department of Corrections is helping her reach women in the same prison where she once served time. She's also working with others like the Potter's House and Pastor Cheryl Brady. But the most surprising partnership developed with the most unexpected person.
Never did I dream, in a million years that 4 years, 5 years later, I'd be at a conference and here comes this little lady that I once knew with a bullhorn.
And she looks at me and she goes, "You don't remember me, do you?" She said, "You're the lady with the bullhorn." And I said, "You're the lady on my corner."
Dawn now calls Kathy Mom, and together they pray with women on death row. Her rigorous discipleship program has a 98% success rate and a year-long waiting list. Those who make it through feel forever changed. Belinda, for example, recently left for Africa to work with children in Heidi Baker's Christian Missions Group. She credits both God and Dawn for giving her hope and a new identity.
I'm so thankful that he just took somebody like me and like us, all of us, and turned all of our ugliness and all of our ugliness, and he made it all beautiful.
Dawn's now expanding her ministry to men's prisons with plans to open up discipleship homes for them too. Her passion, however, remains the same: to see revival in the prison nation.
I had a lot of people tell me, "Oh, this is jailhouse religion, and when you leave, you're going to lose it." It's been 9 years, and I'm more on fire and more zealous today than I've ever been. I refuse, to hear that. I'm going to live for Jesus, and I'm going to stay on fire. I want to see revival.
John Jessup, CBN News, reporting from Daytona Beach, Florida.
Well, we thank John Jessup for that very encouraging story, the power of God's love to change a life. When you look at Dawn's situation there, she was so changed by the love of Jesus Christ that she said, "I don't want to keep it to myself. I'm going to help women that need to really be empowered and hear about this grace and mercy and forgiveness of the Lord, and then in turn help them lead successful lives." So many of us, when we see the incarcerated, kind of just hope the best for them and hope that they can straighten their life out. But someone like Dawn, who was forever changed by the love of Jesus, is making an eternal difference. Well, coming up, he's been in ministry for over 20 years and has never told anyone his family's secret until now. You don't want to miss his story. Stay with us. Growing up, Sean Thornton's life was anything but normal. At church, his mom was a sweet Sunday school teacher, but at home, she turned into a violent monster. Take a look.
Growing up, my life was anything but normal. But then, so was my mom. After waking up from a coma following a car crash, her gentle and sweet disposition had been replaced by violent mood swings, profanity-laced tirades, and uncontrollable fits of rage. A moment of frustration might make her hurl a knife at me, my little brother Troy, or my dad, or just cuss us out, only to shower us with love and affection in the next moment like nothing had happened. Yet, this same woman was also a Bible reader, Sunday school teacher, and a friend to the elderly, poor, and marginalized wherever she went. How the same person could be a saint one minute and a nightmare the next was a constant source of frustration for our family. Then, one day, after decades of embarrassing outbursts, a surprise discovery finally helped us come to grips with my mom's mysterious condition and brought me to a startling realization that changed the course of my life forever.
Well, Sean Thornton joins us now. Sean, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Andrew. Good to be with you.
Your book is so transparent, and you really let out a lot of details that some authors wouldn't be so brave to do.
Yeah.
Particularly when I'm reading about you as a young boy up in your room with your dog. Yeah. You're just kind of crying and hearing your parents fight. It really grabs the heart. Now tell us, the accident really changed her.
Yeah, it was before I was born. She is in an accident when she's 14, my mom. She is in a coma then for 3 months. She turns 15 in the coma. And the person driving was a boyfriend she barely knew. They were just getting to know each other. He was a senior in high school, so he graduated while she was still in the coma. And when she wakes up with physical challenges. She can't walk correctly. She has balance issues, emotional challenges. So she has outbursts. She can be calm one minute, depressed the next, angry and upset the next over little things. And then there are a lot of mental illness associated with this as well. So from the the accident on, and then it affected my childhood, our lives. It was just chaos in our home.
And I'm struck by the fact in reading your book that you really thought this type of behavior and family life was fairly normal.
Early, you know, we hear that from, you know, children who grow up in an abusive home or in a home with, excuse me, an alcoholic parent who's got a lot of issues, and then they start realizing, wait a minute, because if this is all you know as a little kid, this is normal, then you start realizing, no, this isn't normal. Then you get into your early teen years for me, and I started saying, I want out of this. This is so abnormal. I want their life. I want to be in that house. And then you start to discover, as I did, that, wait a minute, those other people have brokenness too. Maybe not the same extent or the exact same circumstances as me, but we're all living in broken lives and in an all but normal experience because of the fall of humanity.
Were you afraid of your mom?
I wouldn't say I was afraid of my mom. She could get very angry and start throwing things and cussing, but I put it in the context of like her brain was short-circuiting. And so I never felt afraid of my mom in that sense. There were times I was scared that I wasn't moving fast enough to get away from something or like that, but I didn't live in fear of my mom.
One thing your book really sounds the alarm on is we don't know what other families have gone through, what they're going through, what individuals have dealt with and struggled with. You're a pastor.
Yeah.
How has your childhood affected your ministry?
Well, even every week when I get up to speak to our congregation, we have several services, I pray and I talk to the Lord and I say, Lord, remind me that there's a Sean Thornton out there, there's a John Thornton, my dad, or a Beverly Thornton, my mom, that maybe even on the way to church, because sometimes for us coming to church was chaos. So I think about the people who are there, they all look like, you know, we all come at our best to church and we sing, we smile at each other, greet each other. And so I'm constantly reminded that there's someone who just heard the cancer word this week, the divorce word, or there's something going on.
Why do we do that? You know, I guess I can't say everybody does, but a lot of us, when we go to church, we put, you know, we're Christ followers and we should find identity and partnership with each other and communion, but we put this mask on like, I'm fine, I'm fine. Why don't we allow ourselves to be more vulnerable?
It's interesting. In our case, I think some of us do it because we're hiding something. We're hiding immorality, and we've seen that. We've seen, unfortunately, pastors and Christian leaders who the mask is taken off and we find greed and arrogance and corruption. But in our case, we weren't consciously trying to hide this from anyone. We've actually been shocked as a family that people didn't know more. People in our church and our family are saying, wait, we didn't know. We see, you didn't know? We weren't trying to hide it in our case. I think there are a lot of people just trying to cope, and church becomes a place where they can kind of be fed, be around other people, experience some normality. And so some, yes, are hiding it and they're putting on a mask. Then others are just trying to make it to tomorrow, and they're just trying to have a little peace for a few moments in their lives.
What about someone watching the program who says, you know, Sean, there's brokenness in my family.
Yeah.
We would call it, I guess, dysfunctional.
Dysfunction,
right?
yeah.
I'm broken. We have been dealing with things or God hasn't showed up. God hasn't remedied this situation. What about how God uses, quote, broken people?
Well, I think sometimes God chooses to take us through a season of brokenness, or in like my mom's case, it became brokenness she had to live with, and it becomes a wound she carries with her that affects us. And I think that God uses that, like in my case, I can speak to my situation. All my mom's brokenness helped shape my heart for hurting people and for people who are going through chaos, kids growing up in tough environments or broken families, dysfunctional families. And so I think God uses those things for our good, in my case, in my story, for others' good, the good of others, and then ultimately for His glory. And so I think even at times He chooses not to heal, He chooses not to fix, because He has this grand plan He's working where He's going to use our experiences, as He has in my life, to develop in me a pastor's heart.
And we sometimes think if God is loving, He will fix me or fix us, right?
Yeah.
But that's not perhaps the best theology.
No, it's not. Even in Hebrews, we learn that whom the Lord loves, He chastens too. So He goes as far as even disciplining us. I think of it as parenting. Sometimes my kids go through things, and I might put, a little Band-Aid on the cut, but I also know that it's good for them to experience a cut or to go through some things to grow and know that life has some hurts and frailties. And I think God knows that in the course of our lives, what we face today, like David facing the lion and the bear, then he's ready for Goliath. And I think in my case, I went through some things, and our family went through some things, so that God could use us in a different and even greater way beyond that.
And there's great hope in this book, too, because you call your mother your spiritual hero in the midst of all this. And at her funeral, you heard from people who said her spiritual impact was just marvelous in their life.
It was huge because she noticed people other people didn't notice. She noticed the marginalized. She
and now
noticed,
you do, too.
Yeah, and I you know, it's like a sixth sense for me because my mom had it. And I don't feel uncomfortable around people who are different than me, someone in a wheelchair, someone who's got autism, a child with autism. And we all feel uncomfortable if it's different than we are. But I mean, I don't run from that because my mom didn't run from that. She ran to those people. She loved them, treated them with the same dignity she treated the pastor or anyone else.
Special thing in your book, you're talking about what your church does now to minister to people. And I guess your church in California had created some fake snow for like a sledding situation. And a parent of a disabled child said, thank you. You let children like mine go first.
Yeah.
And we're not usually counted first.
No.
I mean, the impact you're having is terrific.
So we bring in 95 tons of snow to have this big event where 5,000 people show up. And it's quite a process in Southern California to bring 95 tons of snow and put it out so we can do sledding once a year. But it's an outreach to our community. And what we say is, even to the community, kids with special needs can come and we give them the first hour on the hill and nobody else can go out. And this mom said, we usually get the leftovers. Your church gave us the first opportunity on the fresh snow. And she started to cry and she said, nobody's done that for our family. And I linked that back to my mom. Yeah. My mom taught me to love folks who are a little different, who are dealing with a physical or emotional or mental disability, and love them just as much as you'd love anybody else. And you know where my mom got it? She got it from Jesus. So my mom taught me how to live and love like Jesus.
Final question, why the book now? Why are you, at this point, telling about your story?
Yeah, and I've never told the story throughout 20-some years of preaching every weekend. I haven't told any of the stories of my childhood because I think they didn't matter, but I'm learning my story itself has impact, and people are finding an echo in their heart to something that went on in their childhood and their past. And I'm finding that as I've told my story, people are finding healing and hope just through my own memoir. And so now, because God's maybe given me the maturity, the ability to say, okay, this is what I went through, this is my life, and God's going to use it for His glory.
And take down our masks.
Yeah, take down our masks.
Take off the masks. Well, Sean's book is called All But Normal, and it's available wherever books are sold. We thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Andrew, so much.
Really appreciated the book. Well, still ahead, parents who were told that their baby was cursed.
When people saw her, they used to say, who knows what sin your forefathers might have committed to make your daughter be born like this?
We'll tell you how CBN is helping them and other families around the world. Stay with us. Each year, hundreds of thousands of people are diagnosed with medical conditions ranging from physical deformities to eye and ear impairments to appendicitis. The good news is that many of these conditions can be treated through surgical procedures. The bad news, many will never experience healing because their families are just too poor to afford the necessary medical care. When Sahitha was born with a cleft lip, neighbors told her parents that their daughter was cursed. Her mother and father not only worried about the baby's future, they also feared she may die.
Sahitha was born with a cleft lip. Her parents knew it would devastate her entire life.
I was sad and scared. When I tried to breastfeed her, she choked and cried. And when I fed her with a bottle, the milk often came out of her nose.
I was worried about her future. Would she be able to go to school? Would she ever get married?
No one was willing to help them in their small village in southern India. Many thought it was a generational curse.
When people saw her, they used to say, who knows what sin your forefathers might have committed to make your daughter be born like this?
Sahitha's father couldn't pay for a cleft lip operation. He's a barber, but he didn't make enough money to even run a shop. He spent most of his time going door to door looking for customers. Then CBN found out about Sahitha when she was 2.5 months old. We immediately gave her a free cleft lip surgery. 3 weeks after the operation, we visited the family.
We are so happy that she can easily drink milk, and she looks so beautiful.
We no longer are worried about her speech, education, or even marriage.
CBN also wanted to help Sahitha's father provide a better life for his wife and daughters. So we gave him a barbershop. All new equipment and supplies were included. Now he'll get a lot more business since his customers will come to him.
I will make sure that my daughters get good food, clothes, and education. And I will take them to doctors when they get sick. We are indebted to you. You gave my daughter the surgery she desperately needed, and you gave me a shop for my livelihood. Thank you so much.
Imagine being the parent of a child with a physical deformity like that, and not only dealing with the struggle that the child will have becoming nourished, but then being told by the community that your child has a curse or is cursed. But thanks to people like you, CBN is able to step in and make a difference. And when you join the 700 Club, it's just $20 a month. You allow us the privilege of helping families like that. You can dial 888-777-1999 to get on board, or log on to 700clubinteractive.com. We'd love to hear from you. Well, we leave you with Proverbs chapter 16, verse 3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. If you need someone to pray with you, give us a call, 888-777-1999. We'll see you next time on 700 Club Interactive.